The moment I saw her face, I knew everything had changed. My daughter, Emily, standing in front of me, pale and trembling. "Dad, Mom's been seeing him again," she whispered, her voice shaking with the weight of the secret she could no longer keep. My heart stopped. The world felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. In that instant, everything I'd known about my wife, Lauren, shattered. This wasn't some petty rumor. Emily wasn't the type to make up stories like this. But how could I confront her? How could I face the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had trusted with everything, when I wasn't even sure if she'd ever loved me at all? As I stood there, trying to process what my daughter had just revealed, I knew I had to get to the bottom of it. I had to find out if this was really happening. And the more I dug, the darker the truth became. What I found would change our lives forever. The air felt thicker after Emily's confession. It was almost as if time had slowed down. Her words echoed in my mind, and I couldn't stop thinking about them. Mom's been seeing him again. The dread, the betrayal, it was all crashing down on me at once. My chest tightened, and a sense of helplessness washed over me. This wasn't a random accusation. This was my daughter, the one person in the world I trusted above all else. She would never lie to me. But how could I have missed it? Lauren, my wife, the woman I had married and built a life with, the mother of my children, how could she have been hiding something like this from me? I had spent years giving her my loyalty, my trust. I had never once doubted her, not for a second. Yet here I was, standing in my kitchen, the walls of my home suddenly feeling like a prison. I couldn't just let it go. I needed to know more. I needed to understand how far this had gone. What had Lauren done? Who was this man she had been seeing? And why had Emily kept this secret from me for so long? I couldn't wait any longer. The confusion, the anger, it was all bubbling inside me, and I needed answers. Without saying another word to Emily, I grabbed my phone and walked to the living room. My hands were shaking as I dialed Lauren's number. I could feel my pulse racing. Was she going to deny it? Was she going to make up some excuse, some elaborate lie to cover up her actions? I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I knew one thing. This was going to be the conversation that would change everything. She picked up on the third ring. "Hello." I didn't waste any time. "Lauren, we need to talk. Now." She was quiet for a moment. I could hear her shifting in the background, probably wondering why I was being so direct. "What's going on, David?" Her voice was calm, almost too calm. That's when I knew something was wrong. She wasn't even pretending to be surprised or concerned. It was as if she had already expected this moment to come. "I know," I said, my voice steady but filled with a quiet fury. "I know about him. And I know you've been seeing him behind my back." There was a long pause. Then, a deep sigh. "David, please. I don't know where you're getting these ideas, but you're mistaken." "Mistaken?" My stomach churned. How could she deny it so easily? She didn't even try to explain herself. She didn't even sound guilty. It was as if she was pretending it wasn't even a big deal. "I'm not mistaken," I replied, my voice tight. "Emily told me everything. She said you've been seeing him again." There was a moment of silence. And then she spoke, her voice trembling slightly this time. "Look, David, I didn't want to hurt you. But things haven't been right between us for a long time. I've been lonely, okay. Lonely." The word hit me like a slap in the face. She was lonely? After everything we had built together, after the life we had shared, she chose to betray me because of loneliness? My mind raced. How could she be so cold, so callous? She was throwing everything away for a fling, for someone else, and she had the audacity to sit there and make it sound like it was my fault. "You're telling me that this is my fault?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice calm. "That you cheated because I didn't make you feel loved? Because I wasn't enough?" "No, that's not what I meant, David. But you've been so distant lately, and I just couldn't. I couldn't keep living like that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't even apologizing. She wasn't owning up to the fact that she had betrayed me. No, she was deflecting, blaming me for her own choices. It was like she thought I would just forgive her because she was lonely. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Who is he, Lauren?" I asked, my voice quieter now. "Who's the man you've been seeing behind my back?" There was another long pause. I could feel her hesitation through the phone. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. "It doesn't matter, David. He's not important." Not important? The man she was seeing was not important? My mind was spinning. This was the woman I had spent over a decade with, the woman I had trusted with my life, and she was brushing it all off like it was nothing. I felt the rage building up inside me, but I couldn't let it control me. Not yet. I needed more answers. "So, what now?" I asked, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. You're just going to keep lying to me, keep pretending that everything is fine, after everything we've been through? I'm sorry, David, she said, but it didn't feel like an apology. It felt like a rehearsed line, something she had said 1,000 times before. I really am. But I wasn't buying it. There was no sincerity in her words. No remorse. I had been played for a fool, and now it was too late. The damage was done. As I ended the call, I felt a mixture of numbness and fury. The woman I thought I knew had just shattered my world with her lies. I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine. I couldn't ignore the betrayal any longer. My mind was already racing, thinking about the next steps. I had to confront this head-on, no matter how painful it was. But there was still one thing I needed to do. One thing that would bring everything to light. I had to find out exactly who this man was, and I wasn't going to let Lauren or anyone else stop me. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The next few days were a blur of tension, disbelief, and anger. Every time I looked at Lauren, it was like looking at a stranger. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with my heart, was standing in front of me, but all I could see was a liar, a betrayer. She acted like everything was normal, going about her daily routine, cooking dinner, taking care of the kids, all while knowing that she had been hiding a secret that was tearing our family apart. And to make matters worse, she had the audacity to act like I was the one who had done something wrong. The weight of it all pressed down on me. I didn't know who to turn to. My friends were all clueless about what was going on, and I couldn't bring myself to share this kind of pain with anyone. It was too personal, too humiliating. The man she had been seeing, whoever he was now a part of my life, whether I liked it or not. And it gnawed at me. I couldn't let it go. I kept thinking about Emily. She had been the one to give me the truth, the one who had opened my eyes. But she was so quiet, so withdrawn. It was like she knew something was about to break. I could see the worry in her eyes, the guilt, as if she was afraid of what might happen next. She had already been through so much, and now she was caught in the middle of this mess, with no one to protect her from the fallout of her mother's actions. I needed answers. I couldn't just sit here and wait for Lauren to decide when she would confess or come clean. No, I had to take matters into my own hands. I began searching for clues, piecing together the puzzle that had been hidden in front of me all along. One night, after the kids were asleep, I went through Lauren's things. I hated myself for doing it. I hated that I had come to this point, where I no longer trusted her. But I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know who this man was. I needed to understand why she had done this to me, to our family. I started with her phone. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but I couldn't help it. As I scrolled through her messages, I felt sick to my stomach. There were dozens of texts, casual conversations with friends, work-related chats, but then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A message from an unknown number. The tone was flirty, suggestive, like they had been texting for months. My hand shook as I read through the messages, the words blurring together as the anger and betrayal overwhelmed me. You still up? I'm thinking about you, one of the messages read. I can't stop thinking about what we did last night, read another. My stomach churned. I could feel the heat of rage rising in my chest, my hands balled into fists. How could she? How could she betray me like this? And what hurt even more was that she had been doing it for so long. This wasn't some one-time mistake. No, this was an affair that had been going on behind my back, under my nose. For months. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my coat and left the house. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to get out. The weight of the lies was suffocating me, and I couldn't breathe. I walked for hours, my mind racing. I thought about the kids. How would they react when they found out the truth? How would they handle the chaos that was about to unfold in our home? I didn't want to hurt them, but I couldn't keep living this lie either. I had to make a decision. When I returned home, it was late. Lauren was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. I could hear her shallow breathing from across the room. I wanted to yell, to confront her, to demand answers right then and there. But something stopped me. A quiet voice inside told me that I needed to wait, that I needed to plan this out. I wasn't going to let her off the hook so easily. The next day, I called the man. I didn't know who he was, but I was determined to find out. I traced the number from the messages, and after some quick research, I found out his name. Ryan Matthews. I couldn't believe it at first. Ryan was a colleague of Lauren's, a man I had met a few times over the years. I had always thought of him as just another friendly face at work events. Little did I know, he had been sleeping with my wife behind my back, laughing at me while I played the fool. I decided to confront him. I didn't care about the consequences anymore. I had to see for myself what kind of man would do this to another person. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I arranged to meet him at a cafe. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked through the door, my eyes scanning the room until I spotted him. Ryan was sitting in the corner, looking casual, like this was just another day. He looked up when I approached, his face going pale as he realized who I was. "You've got some explaining to do," I said, my voice cold and controlled. He stood up, looking uneasy. "David, Shut up," I interrupted. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You've been sleeping with my wife, and I want to know why." Ryan stammered, clearly taken aback. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this, man. Don't give me that crap," I snapped. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You've been playing me for months. I'm done with your lies." His eyes darted around, and for a moment, I thought he might try to run. But instead, he sat back down, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I never meant to hurt you, David," he said quietly. "But she wanted it. She was the one who came to me first." The words hit me like a punch in the gut. She came to him first? That was the part that stung the most. My wife, my partner, had sought out someone else. She had taken the first step, and now here I was, facing the consequences of her choices. I didn't know how I felt anymore. Anger? Disbelief? Pain? It was all there, swirling inside me. But I didn't have time for it. I had to make a choice, and I had to make it quickly. There was no going back from this. The conversation with Ryan left me numb. My thoughts were jumbled, and the pain was unbearable. I could still feel his words echoing in my mind. She came to me first. It was like the whole world had flipped upside down, and I didn't know which way was up anymore. I had thought that I was the one who held the power in my marriage, that my wife and I had a bond that could withstand anything. But the reality was much darker than I could have ever imagined. Lauren had chosen him. She had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now there was no going back. I left the cafe without another word to Ryan. I didn't need to hear any more excuses. I didn't need to know about their secret rendezvous or their stolen moments. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered now was the future, and how I was going to move forward from here. I drove home in silence, the weight of the confrontation sitting heavily on my chest. As I walked through the front door, the house felt colder than it ever had before. Lauren was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, acting like everything was normal. She looked up when I entered, and I could see the slight panic in her eyes. She must have known that something was coming, but she had no idea how much I knew now. She thought she had been getting away with it, but she was wrong. Without saying a word, I stood there for a moment, staring at her. I wanted to scream, to let all my anger and hurt spill out, but I knew that wouldn't change anything. I had already heard enough lies from her. I needed the truth, and I needed it now. "Lauren," I said, my voice low and calm, though inside I was shaking with rage. "I know everything." She froze. Her face went pale as she looked up at me, her eyes widening. For a moment, she said nothing, as if trying to process what I had just said. Then she stood up, her movement stiff and awkward. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, stepping closer. "I know about Ryan. I know about the affair." Her expression shifted, and for a brief moment, I saw something I hadn't expected: guilt. It flickered in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She quickly composed herself, putting on that cold, practiced mask she had become so good at wearing. "David, this isn't what you think," she started, her voice trembling. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a mistake, just a moment of weakness. It meant nothing." I laughed bitterly. "A moment of weakness? Is that what you're calling it? A moment of weakness? You've been seeing him for months, Lauren. This wasn't just some accident. This was a choice. You chose him." Her face turned red, and I could see the anger bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "You don't understand. You haven't been there for me. You haven't been paying attention to me. And when I tried to talk to you about how I was feeling, you just ignored me. I felt alone, David. I felt like I had no one." I shook my head in disbelief. "So, you decided to throw away everything we had? Our marriage? Our family? For what? A man who couldn't care less about you." "Don't say that," she snapped. "You don't know anything about what Ryan means to me. He makes me feel alive again, something you haven't done in years." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Alive? So, all these years I had spent working hard to provide for our family, to give her everything she ever wanted, had meant nothing? She needed someone to make her feel alive? What did that even mean? And this man, Ryan, he had done that for her? I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. I clenched my fists, trying to control the anger that was threatening to explode. You had a choice, Lauren. You could have come to me, talked to me, told me you were feeling lonely. But instead, you chose to betray me. You chose to lie to me. She looked down, her voice softening. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't buying it. The apology wasn't real. It was just another attempt to cover up the mess she had made. There was no sincerity in her words, no remorse. She was only sorry because she got caught. She wasn't sorry for breaking my heart. She wasn't sorry for ruining everything we had built together. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I want to. She took a step forward, her eyes pleading. Please, David. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear I didn't. I'll do anything to make this right. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The trust had been shattered, and I couldn't see a way to fix it. Not anymore. I took a step back, my heart aching. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way. You've changed everything. The silence that followed was suffocating. There was nothing left to say. I had learned the truth, and now I had to make a decision about what to do with it. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I couldn't continue pretending like everything was okay when it was falling apart at the seams. I turned and walked toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I heard her call out to me. David, please don't leave. I love you. I paused, my hand on the door. But the words felt hollow. She had said those words before, and they didn't mean anything anymore. Not after everything. I opened the door and stepped outside, feeling a weight lift off my chest as I closed it behind me. I didn't know what the future held. But one thing was certain, I couldn't go back to the life I had known. Everything had changed, and I was going to have to find a way to move on. The days that followed felt like an endless blur. My mind was clouded with confusion, anger, and betrayal. I had walked out that night, leaving Lauren behind, unsure of where I was going or what I was doing. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the years of lies, the constant manipulation, the way she had made me feel like I was the problem all along. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted her, shared my life with her, only for her to rip it apart without a second thought? I stayed with a friend for the first few nights, not wanting to return to the house that had been a symbol of everything I had lost. The silence there was deafening. Every room felt like a reminder of the life I thought I had. My thoughts raced. The questions piled up. What was I supposed to do now? Was this the end of everything? What about the kids? The kids. They were my anchor, my reason for holding on. I couldn't let them see the pain that I was feeling, the cracks that had appeared in the foundation of our family. I needed to protect them, to shield them from the reality of what had happened. But how could I protect them from a truth they would eventually have to face? How could I explain to them why their mother had torn everything apart? I spent a lot of time reflecting in those days. What had gone wrong? Where had I failed? I thought about the last few years, how Lauren had become distant, how we had stopped connecting on the same level. There had been signs, I now realized. Small things I had ignored. The late nights at work, the sudden need for space, the subtle hints that something wasn't quite right. But I had been too wrapped up in my own life, my own concerns, to see it. She had been unhappy, and I had missed it. That was on me. But it wasn't just my fault. I couldn't allow myself to shoulder all the blame. Lauren had made a choice. She had chosen to cheat. She had chosen to lie. She had chosen to destroy the trust that had been built over years. That wasn't something I could fix. No matter how much I wanted to believe in second chances, I knew deep down that there was no coming back from this. The betrayal was too deep. I knew I had to go back. I couldn't hide from the situation forever. But the thought of facing Lauren again filled me with dread. What would she say? What would she do? Would she beg for forgiveness, like she had before? Would she try to convince me that everything could go back to normal, like she always did? I needed answers. I needed closure. The next day, I returned to the house. Lauren wasn't home when I arrived. I stood at the door for a moment, my hand on the doorknob, hesitating. What was I supposed to say to her? How was I supposed to look at her, knowing what she had done? I didn't even recognize her anymore. When she walked through the door later that evening, I was sitting on the couch, waiting for her. The moment she saw me, her expression faltered, and for a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But then she quickly masked it, returning to her usual cold demeanor. David, she said, her voice stiff. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, I replied, my voice calm, but there was an edge to it that I couldn't hide. I need to understand why. Why you did this. She stood there for a moment, unsure of how to respond. I could see the weight of her own guilt pressing down on her, but she wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. She crossed her arms defensively, as if trying to shield herself from the inevitable confrontation. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she began, her voice faltering. I never wanted to hurt you. I shook my head. You didn't just hurt me, Lauren. You destroyed everything we built together. You broke my trust. You broke this family. I know, she said softly, lowering her eyes. I've been feeling so lost for a long time. Things haven't been right between us for years. I never wanted to cheat, David. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then why did you? I asked, my voice rising. Why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you come to me when you were feeling lost? Why did you go to him instead? I don't know, she whispered, her voice cracking. I was so confused. I felt like I was drowning, and he was there. He made me feel important. I guess I just got caught up in it. So, this is my fault? I asked, incredulous. Because I didn't make you feel important enough? No, that's not what I'm saying, she replied quickly, shaking her head. But I've been so frustrated with you for so long. You didn't see me. You didn't notice the way I was slipping away. I needed someone to see me. Ryan was there when I needed him. My mind was racing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lauren was still trying to justify her actions. She was still blaming me for what had happened. It was like she couldn't accept responsibility for her choices. I had given her everything, and yet she still found a way to make me feel like I was the one who had failed her. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice breaking. You've hurt me in a way I didn't think was possible, and I don't know if I can get past this. She looked at me, her eyes full of tears now. David, please. I don't want to lose you. I love you. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Just tell me what you need from me. I stood up, my heart heavy. I don't know what I need from you anymore, Lauren. You've already taken everything from me. I don't think I can come back from this. With those words, I walked out of the room, leaving her behind, standing there in the wreckage of our marriage. As I left the house, I felt a sense of finality. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep living in the past. I couldn't keep chasing someone who had already decided to let go of me. It was over. The following days were even more difficult than I could have imagined. I had left Lauren behind, but it felt like a part of me had been left with her. I kept telling myself that walking away was the right thing to do, that it was the only way I could start healing, start rebuilding my life. But in reality, the pain was still there, lingering beneath the surface, gnawing at me every time I tried to move forward. I stayed with a friend, trying to take my mind off everything, but the silence was unbearable. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lauren's face. I heard her voice, pleading with me to stay, to forgive her. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that forgiveness wasn't something I could just give away. It wasn't something that could be fixed with a few apologies or empty promises. This was deeper than that. This wasn't a mistake. This was a betrayal, a decision she had made over and over again, each time choosing someone else over me. My mind kept going back to the kids. How was I going to tell them? How would they handle the truth when it came out? I didn't want them to see their mother in a negative light. I didn't want them to grow up with the same pain I was feeling. But at the same time, I couldn't hide the truth forever. It was only a matter of time before they found out what had happened, and I had no idea how to protect them from the inevitable fallout. I decided to reach out to a therapist, someone who could help me navigate through the storm of emotions that were threatening to swallow me whole. I knew I needed to work through the anger, the confusion, the sadness. I couldn't keep it all bottled up inside. It wasn't healthy, and I wasn't sure how much more I could take before I cracked. The first session was tough. I felt vulnerable sitting in that chair, opening up to a complete stranger about the mess that had become my life. But the therapist listened. She didn't judge me. She didn't try to minimize my pain. She just let me talk. And it helped more than I expected. It was the first time in a long time that I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. We talked about my relationship with Lauren. We talked about how I had missed the signs, how I had let myself get lost in my work, in my own life, without paying attention to the needs of the woman I had loved. I knew it wasn't all my fault, but I also knew that I had a part in the breakdown of our marriage. I had become complacent, taking her for granted, thinking that love would just survive on its own. But love required effort. It required communication, and I had failed her in that regard. At the same time, I knew I couldn't let her off the hook for what she had done. Her actions were unforgivable. She had chosen to betray me, and that was something I could never forget. I had to figure out how to move on from the hurt, how to rebuild my life without her in it. As the days passed, I slowly started to make progress. I spent more time with the kids, trying to create a sense of normalcy in our home. I didn't want them to feel like their world was falling apart, even though I knew it was. I took them to the park, played games with them, and tried to remind them that, despite everything, they were still loved. But the guilt weighed heavily on me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was failing them. They deserved better than this. They deserved a mother and father who were united, not torn apart by secrets and lies. One evening, a week after I had left Lauren, I decided to return home. I wasn't sure what I was going to say to her when I saw her, but I knew I needed closure. I couldn't keep running from this forever. I needed to face her, to hear her side of things, even if I didn't want to. I needed to understand how she could do this to me, to our family. When I walked into the house, it felt like stepping into a foreign world. The place that had once been filled with love and laughter now felt cold, empty. I didn't know where Lauren was, but I wasn't ready to confront her just yet. I needed a moment to gather my thoughts, to prepare myself for whatever was coming next. I sat down on the couch, staring at the space around me. The house was still the same, still filled with the memories of everything we had once shared. But those memories were now tainted. They no longer held the warmth they once did. They were reminders of the woman who had lied to me, who had betrayed my trust. It didn't take long for Lauren to arrive. I heard the front door open, followed by the sound of footsteps on the hardwood floor. She entered the living room, her eyes immediately locking with mine. There was no longer any pretense. No more acting like everything was fine. We both knew why I was here. "David," she said softly, her voice tinged with regret. "You came back." I nodded. "I need to talk. I need to understand." She sat down on the other side of the room, her hands fidgeting in her lap. There was a long silence between us, a silence that stretched for what felt like an eternity. Finally, I spoke. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you betray me? We had everything." Lauren took a deep breath, her face softening. "I don't know, David. I can't explain it. I was lost. I was looking for something I thought I didn't have. And when Ryan came into my life, I just let it happen. I never meant to hurt you. But I did. And I can't take that back." I looked at her, searching for the truth in her eyes. Was she being honest with me? Or was this just another lie? I wasn't sure. But part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was truly sorry, that she regretted her actions. But no matter how much I wanted to, I couldn't ignore the fact that she had betrayed me. She had chosen someone else. She had torn our family apart, and there was no going back. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Lauren," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to find a way to move on. For me. For the kids. I can't keep living in the past." Lauren nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "I understand. I'll leave if that's what you need. I just want you to be happy." I didn't know if I could be happy again. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep holding on to the past. I had to let go of her, of the life we had, and start over. It wouldn't be easy, but it was the only way forward. The days that followed were a mix of emotions and decisions. It was strange living in a house that once felt like home, but now felt more like a reminder of everything I had lost. Lauren was there, but the tension between us was palpable. She knew, I knew, that things could never go back to what they were before. We were two strangers occupying the same space, each of us walking around the other with fragile, broken pieces of what used to be a family. I had always prided myself on being the strong one, the protector, the one who could solve any problem that came my way. But this was different. There was no simple solution to fix the pain, the betrayal. No matter how hard I tried to bury it, to ignore it, the hurt always found a way to come back to the surface. And the guilt of it all was suffocating. It was like carrying an anchor around my neck, something that weighed me down, reminding me that no matter what happened next, nothing could change the past. But the one thing that kept me going was the kids. I had to focus on them. I had to make sure they weren't affected by this. They didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of our mess. Every night, I would sit with them, read them stories, tuck them into bed, and pretend that everything was okay. I smiled and told them I loved them, but inside, I was dying a little more each day. I couldn't show them the cracks in my heart, the devastation that was taking over my mind. Lauren and I had started having conversations, the kind of conversations that people have when they know their marriage is over but are still too afraid to admit it. She apologized over and over again. She begged me to consider giving her another chance, to look past what she had done and focus on our family, on the good times we had shared. But no matter how many times she apologized, it didn't change the fact that she had chosen another man over me. It didn't change the hurt I felt every time I looked at her. We spent hours talking about the kids, about the logistics of how we would co-parent. We discussed schedules, visitation, and how we would break the news to them. There was no easy way to do it. There was no perfect moment when everything would suddenly be okay. I knew that our children would have questions, and I wasn't ready to answer them. How could I explain what their mother had done? How could I explain that the woman they had trusted had betrayed me, and in turn, betrayed them? One night, after a long and draining conversation about the future, I was sitting alone in the living room when Emily walked in. She had been unusually quiet lately, and I could see the worry in her eyes. She had been carrying the weight of this secret for so long, and now it seemed like she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Dad," she said softly, sitting down beside me, "I know you're upset, and I know Mom messed up, but I don't want to lose both of you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had never thought about it that way. Of course, she didn't want to lose both of us. She was a kid. She shouldn't have to worry about adult problems. But there was nothing I could do to shield her from the reality of what had happened. It had already shattered our family. I had to find a way to explain it to her, to make her understand without making her feel like it was her fault. "I know, sweetheart," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't want to lose you either. But things are different now, and I need to figure out what's best for everyone." She looked up at me, her eyes full of innocence, a sadness that a child shouldn't have to carry. "Are you and Mom, are you still going to be together?" I couldn't answer her right away. I didn't know what the future held, and I didn't want to lie to her. "I don't know yet, Emily. Your mom and I are figuring things out. But whatever happens, we will always be here for you. We're still your parents, and that won't change." She nodded slowly, but I could tell she didn't fully understand. She was still too young to grasp the full weight of what was happening, but I saw the hurt in her eyes. I saw the way she had grown up too fast because of this mess. That night, after Emily went to bed, I sat in silence, reflecting on everything that had happened. Lauren was upstairs, probably crying herself to sleep, asking herself the same questions I had been asking. How did we get here? How did we end up with a broken family, with no way to fix it? I couldn't sleep. I was too consumed by my thoughts, by the decisions that lay ahead. The pain I felt in my chest was constant, a dull ache that refused to go away. I knew I had to make a decision, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to let go of the idea of our family, of the life I had built. But I also knew that I couldn't keep living in the past. I couldn't keep holding on to someone who had chosen someone else. Over the next few days, I tried to have one last honest conversation with Lauren. I didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't want to argue or point fingers. I just wanted the truth. And this time, I could see it in her eyes, the regret, the sorrow, the acknowledgement that what she had done could never be undone. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make it right." I stared at her, wondering if I could ever forgive her, if I could ever get past the betrayal. But deep down, I knew the answer. It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about trust, and trust was something that could never be rebuilt overnight. I made the decision that night. I couldn't stay in this marriage any longer. The damage had been done, and there was no coming back from it. I needed to start fresh for myself, for my kids. I needed to find peace, and I couldn't do that while living in the shadow of the past. The next morning, I told Lauren that I was filing for divorce. She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me to stay. She just nodded, her eyes filled with the same regret she had been carrying since the day I found out. It wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't a decision I had wanted to make, but it was the right one. I needed to let go of the past and build a new future. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that love, no matter how strong, could be torn apart by lies and betrayal. But I would survive. I would heal. And one day, I would be whole again.